Jake woke up to the sound of a loud alarm. The noise was so sharp and sudden that he fell out of bed and landed hard on the floor. Outside his window, the sky was still dark purple, but he could see lights coming on all over the academy. All first-year students report to Training Hall Alpha immediately, a voice announced over the intercom. This is not a drill. Jake threw on his uniform and ran down the hallway. Other students were doing the same thing, but they all looked much more awake than he felt. Most of them were also much bigger than him. Jake had to jog to keep up with their normal walking speed. Training Hall Alpha was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Jake couldn't see the top of it. The walls were covered with weapons from a dozen different worlds. In the center of the room was a raised platform where Commander Valthek stood waiting. "Welcome to your first day of real training," she said. Her voice carried across the entire hall without any need for amplification. "Today you will begin the adaptation trials. These trials will test your ability to survive in hostile environments using only your wits and whatever resources you can find." Jake looked around at his classmates. There were about 50 students in his year, representing at least 12 different species. Some had claws and fangs. Others had armor-like skin or multiple arms. A few glowed with their own internal light. The mortality rate for the adaptation trials is 15%, Commander Valthek continued. "If you are not prepared to risk your life, leave now." Nobody moved. "Excellent. You will be divided into pairs. Each pair will face a different challenge. Survive, and you advance to the next level. Fail, and you will be removed from the academy permanently." Jake's heart sank when he saw who his partner was. Kira Voss was a Zentaran, one of the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with gray skin and muscles that looked like they were carved from stone. Her people were born warriors, trained from birth to fight and conquer. "Great," Kira said when she saw Jake. "I get stuck with the pet human." "I'm not a pet," Jake said. "No, you're right. Pets are useful sometimes." Their first trial was in the zero-gravity combat chamber. It was a spherical room with no up or down, just smooth walls and floating obstacles. The goal was simple: disable your opponent using any means necessary. Jake had never fought in zero gravity before. He pushed off from the wall and immediately spun out of control, arms and legs flailing as he tried to find something to grab onto. Kira, meanwhile, moved through the space like she was born to it. "This is embarrassing," Kira said as she grabbed Jake by the ankle and spun him around. "You can't even move properly." Jake crashed into a floating obstacle, a piece of metal debris, about the size of a car. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but it also gave him an idea. Instead of trying to fight Kira directly, Jake grabbed the debris and pushed it toward her. Kira swatted the debris away easily, but Jake was already moving. He had noticed something about the chamber that Kira hadn't. The walls weren't just smooth surfaces. They were gravity generators, designed to create the zero-gravity environment. Jake pushed off from one wall and flew toward the control panel he had spotted near the entrance. Kira followed him, moving much faster than he was, but Jake wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to reach the controls. "What are you doing?" Kira demanded as Jake's fingers found the gravity controls. "Something stupid," Jake said, and activated the gravity generators in a random pattern. Suddenly, the chamber became chaos. Gravity pulled in different directions from different walls. Up became down, left became right, and both Jake and Kira found themselves tumbling through the air as the forces changed every few seconds. But Jake had been ready for it. He had spent his whole life working in the unstable gravity fields of mining operations. He knew how to move when the world kept changing around him. Kira, for all her training, had never dealt with anything like this. Jake used the changing gravity to his advantage, letting the forces carry him where he needed to go while Kira struggled to adapt. When the gravity finally stabilized, Jake was standing over Kira, who was flat on her back and looking very confused. "How did you do that?" she asked. "I cheated," Jake said, helping her up. I changed the rules. Commander Volthic's voice echoed through the chamber. Interesting approach, Morrison. Unconventional, but effective. Their second trial was even more challenging. Jake and Kira were dropped into a simulated alien jungle filled with predators and hostile plant life. The goal was to survive for 24 hours and reach the extraction point on the other side of the jungle. The jungle was hot and humid, with thick vegetation that blocked out most of the light. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, and Jake could see glowing eyes watching them. From the shadows, the air smelled like rotting plants and something else he couldn't identify. Stay close, Kira said, and try not to get us killed. Jake nodded, but he was already studying their environment. The jungle was dangerous, but it was also full of resources if you knew how to use them. The plants that looked poisonous might also be useful as weapons. The strange sounds might be warnings from other creatures. They had been walking for about an hour when they encountered their first real threat. It was a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a tank, with 8 legs and armor plating that covered its entire body. It was about the size of a small building, and it was blocking their path. Sentry beast, Kira said. My people have fought these before. You attack from above while I distract it from the front. Jake looked up at the trees. They were tall and thick, but the creature's armor extended over its back. That won't work. Its armor covers the top too. Then what do you suggest? Jake was studying the creature's legs. They were thick and powerful, but they were also supporting a lot of weight. We don't fight it. We make it fall down. Before Kira could argue, Jake was moving. He grabbed some of the thick vines that hung from the trees and started weaving them together. The creature watched him with multiple eyes, but didn't seem to consider him a threat. What are you doing? Kira whispered. Making a trap. Help me. Working. Together, they created a network of vines stretched between several trees. It looked like a giant spider web, but it was positioned at exactly the right height to catch the creature's legs if it moved forward. Now we need to make it chase us, Jake said. Kira grinned. That part one can handle. She stepped into the creature's line of sight and started making insulting gestures. Jake wasn't sure if the creature understood Zentran curse words, but it definitely understood the tone. It let out a roar that shook the trees and charged forward. The vine trap worked perfectly. The creature's legs got tangled in a network, and its forward momentum sent it crashing to the ground. It thrashed around angrily, but it couldn't get back up. Not bad, human, Kira said as they walked around the trapped creature. You think. Like a coward, but it works. Thanks, I think. They made it through the jungle trial and several others over the next few days. Each trial was more dangerous than the last, but Jake found that his approach was working. While his classmates relied on their natural abilities, Jake used the environment itself as a weapon. In the underwater survival trial, he figured out how to use the water pressure to his advantage. In the desert navigation trial, he used the heat and sand to create signals that led them to safety. In the space walk trial, he turned the vacuum of space into a tool for movement. Not all of his classmates were successful. Jake watched as several students were eliminated from the program. Some were injured badly enough that they had to be taken to the medical bay. Others simply couldn't adapt to the changing challenges. But Jake noticed something else. The trials weren't just testing their ability to survive. They were testing their ability to think in new ways. The challenges were designed to be impossible using traditional methods. Students who relied on what they had always done were the ones who failed. After a week of trials, Jake found himself in the Academy's cafeteria. The food was better than anything he had eaten on Colony 7, but he was too tired to enjoy it. He sat alone at a small table, picking at his meal and trying not to think about how many more trials were coming. Mind if I sit? Jake looked up to see a human girl about his age. She had short black hair and intelligent brown eyes. She was wearing the same uniform as everyone else, but she looked more comfortable in it than Jake felt. Sure, Jake said. I'm Jake. Luna Blackwood. She sighed, sitting down across from him. I've been watching your trials. Very impressive. Thanks. I'm mostly just trying not to die. Luna laughed. That's the goal for all of us. But you're doing something different. You're not trying to overpower the challenges. You're trying to outsmart them. Is that bad? It's human, Luna said. And that might be exactly what this place needs. Jake looked around the cafeteria. Most of the other students were sitting with their own species, but there were a few mixed groups. Everyone seemed to be talking about the trials and comparing their experiences. How long have you been here? Jake asked. 2 years, Luna said. I was in the first group of humans they accepted. There are only 3 of us in the whole academy. What's it like? Really? Jake Morrison stared at the shimmering holographic message floating above his bunk bed. The words made no sense. He read them again, slower this time, making sure he understood every single letter. Greetings, Jake Morrison of Colony 7. Have been selected to attend the Galactic Combat Academy for elite female warriors on Nexus Prime. Report for duty in 7 standard days. Jake blinked hard and rubbed his eyes. The message was still there when he looked again. This had to be some kind of joke. The Academy only accepted girls. Everyone in the galaxy knew that. It was the most dangerous school in known space, and no male had ever set foot inside its walls. Mom, Jake called out, his voice cracking slightly. At 17, he was still growing into his lanky frame, all elbows and knees and nervous energy. His mother, Kate Morrison, appeared in the doorway of their small habitat pod. She was still wearing her mining gear from the overnight shift. What's wrong, Jake? You look like you've seen a ghost. Jake pointed at the hologram. I got a message from the Academy. Kate's face went pale. She knew about the Academy. Everyone did. It was where the galaxy's most dangerous women went to learn how to kill things that couldn't be killed by normal soldiers. The graduation rate was terrible. Many students never came home. That's impossible, Kate said, but she was already moving toward the hologram to read it herself. Her lips moved silently as she read the message 3 times. Jake, she said finally, what did you do? Jake thought back to 3 months ago. The Void Reapers had attacked Colony 7 without warning. They were space pirates, but worse than regular pirates. They had alien technology, and they killed for fun. The colony's defense force had been overwhelmed in minutes. Jake had been working in the mining tunnels when the attack started. He had heard the explosions and screams from above. Instead of running deeper into the tunnels like he was supposed to, Jake had done something stupid. He had gone up to help. The colony's weapon storage had been destroyed, but Jake knew where. The mining equipment was kept. He had rigged the industrial lasers to work as weapons. He had used the mining robots as soldiers. He had even figured out how to make the ore crushers into traps by the time the real military arrived. Jake had somehow managed to drive off the Void Reapers using nothing but mining equipment and a lot of luck. The military officers had been very interested in how a 17-year-old boy had managed to do what their trained soldiers couldn't. I just used what we had, Jake told his mother now. The mining stuff. I made it work. Kate looked at him with a mixture of pride and terror. Jake, this academy. It's not like regular school. Students die there, on purpose. It's part of the training. Jake nodded. He had heard the stories. The academy was where the galaxy's governments sent their most promising female warriors to learn how to fight things that conventional armies couldn't handle. The training was so intense that nearly a quarter of all students died before graduation. I know, Jake said. But Mom, what if this is my chance? What if this is how I can make a difference? Kate sat down heavily on Jake's bunk. You're just a boy, Jake. You're not a warrior. Maybe that's why they want me, Jake said. Maybe they need someone who thinks different. The next 7 days passed in a blur. Jake had to get medical clearances and psychological evaluations. He had to sign papers that basically said if he died at the academy, nobody could sue anyone. He had to say goodbye to everyone he had ever known. The transport ship that came to pick him up was bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. It was sleek and black, and looked like it could destroy a planet if it wanted to. Jake carried his single bag up the ramp and tried not to look scared. The ship's captain was a woman with silver hair and scars on her face. "You're the Morrison boy?" she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Captain Lisa Barnes. I'll be taking you to Nexus Prime. Find a seat and strap in. We'll be making several jumps." Jake found an empty seat near the back of the ship. The other passengers were all women, and they all looked like they could break him in half without trying. Some had scales instead of skin. Others had 4 arms or glowing eyes or other features that marked them as alien species. They all stared at Jake like he was some kind of strange animal. Jake tried to ignore their stares and look out the window instead. The jump to hyperspace made Jake's stomach turn inside out. He had never been off Colony 7 before, and space travel was making him sick. One of the alien women, a tall creature with blue skin and white hair, handed him a small pill. "Motion sickness," she said in accented English. "It will help." "Thanks," Jake said, swallowing the pill. "I'm Jake." "I am Vera," the alien woman said. "I attend the academy as well. 3rd year." "3rd year?" Jake was impressed. Most students who made it to 3rd year were considered practically legends. "Yes, I am surprised to see a male on transport." "Are you perhaps ... maintenance staff?" Jake shook his head. "I'm a student, or I'm going to be." Vera's white eyebrows. "Shut up. That is ... impossible. The academy does not accept males." "Yeah, that's what everyone keeps telling me." The rest of the journey passed in uncomfortable silence. Jake could feel the other passengers watching him and whispering to each other. He caught fragments of conversation in languages he didn't understand, but the tone was clear enough. They thought he was either a mistake or a joke. When they finally arrived at Nexus Prime, Jake's breath caught in his throat. The planet was beautiful in a terrifying way. The sky was deep purple, and 3 moons hung in the afternoon sky. The academy itself was built into the side of a mountain, all black stone and sharp angles that made it look like a fortress. "Welcome to hell," Captain Barnes said cheerfully as they disembarked. "Try not to die on your first day." Jake walked through the academy's main gates carrying his bag and trying to look confident. The courtyard was full of students, all female, all looking like they could kill him with their bare hands. Conversation stopped as he passed. Heads turned. Whispers followed him. The academy's main building was even more impressive up close. The walls were covered with carved names of students who had died during training. Jake tried not to read too many of them as he walked up the steps. Inside, the academy was all polished stone and gleaming metal. Jake found his way to the registration desk, where a woman with green skin and yellow eyes looked at him like he was something unpleasant she had found on the bottom of her shoe. "Name," she said. "Jake Morrison." She checked her computer screen and frowned. "This says you are male." "Yes, ma'am." "That is impossible. We do not accept males." Jake was getting tired of this conversation. "Could you maybe check with someone? There might be a special exception or something." The woman's frown deepened, but she pressed a button on her desk. "Commander Valthek, there is a situation at registration." A few minutes later, Jake found himself face to face with the most intimidating person he had ever seen. Commander Zara Valthek was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark red skin and golden eyes that seemed to look right through him. She was a draconian, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. "So," she said, her voice like distant thunder, "you are the Morrison boy." "Yes, ma'am." "Do you know why you are here?" Jake thought about it. "To learn how to fight things that can't be fought." Commander Valthek's mouth twitched slightly. It might have been a smile. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you are here to teach us how to think in ways we have forgotten." She looked him up and down. "You are smaller than I expected. I get that a lot." "I am sure you do." She handed him a data pad. Your room assignment and class schedule. Dinner is at 1800 hours. Try not to die before then. Jake took the datapad and hefted his bag. Thank you, ma'am. Do not thank me yet, boy. You have not survived. Your first day. As Jake walked away, he could hear Commander Valthek talking to the registration clerk. Send word to the instructors. We have a new variable in the equation. This should be ... interesting. Jake found his room on the 3rd floor of the dormitory building. It was small but clean, with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out over the academy's training grounds. He could see students down there practicing. With weapons he didn't recognize, he unpacked his few belongings and sat on the bed. For the first time since leaving Colony 7, Jake allowed himself to really think about what he had gotten himself into. This place was designed to create the galaxy's most dangerous warriors. The mortality rate was 23%. Most of his classmates could probably kill him without breaking a sweat, but as Jake looked out the window at the alien landscape and the fortress-like academy, he found himself smiling. His mother was right. He was just a boy from a mining colony. He had no special training, no enhanced genetics, no natural advantages. Maybe that was exactly what this place needed. Jake. Morrison grinned and started getting ready for dinner. Tomorrow, the real adventure would begin. Jake's 3rd week at the academy started with a new type of training. Instead of survival trials, the students were now learning about diplomacy and interspecies relations. Jake thought it was a strange subject for a combat school, but he was. Learning that the academy was more complicated than he had first understood. A warrior who can only fight is just a weapon, Professor Helix explained to the class. She was a tall, thin creature with silver skin and 4 arms. A warrior who can think, negotiate, and understand different cultures is a leader. Jake found himself enjoying these classes more than the physical training, while his classmates struggled to understand the complex social rules of different species. Jake seemed to have a natural ability to see things from other perspectives. Morrison, Professor Helix, called out during one lesson. The crystalline delegate is refusing to negotiate because she believes you have insulted her ancestor spirits. How do you respond? Jake thought about it. He had been studying the crystalline culture for days, trying to understand their beliefs about death and memory. I would ask her to teach me the proper way to honor her ancestors. Then I would learn their ritual and perform it correctly. Interesting approach. Most students would try to explain that no insult was intended. But that doesn't solve the problem, Jake said. If I accidentally insulted her ancestors, saying I didn't mean to doesn't fix it. Learning to do it right shows respect. Professor? Helix's silver skin shimmered, which Jake had learned meant she was pleased. Correct. Understanding is more powerful than explanation. Kira Voss, who sat in the row behind Jake, leaned forward. You're getting too comfortable, human. This is still a combat academy. Maybe, Jake said. But combat isn't always about fighting. Their next physical training session proved Jake's point. The exercise was called Urban Warfare, and it took place in a mock city built inside one of the academy's massive training halls. The students were divided into teams and given different objectives. Jake's team included Kira, a crystalline student named Zara, and a 4-armed mechanic named Bolt. Their mission was to capture a strategic building while defending against 3 other teams. Simple, Kira said as they studied the map. We go in fast and hard. Overwhelming force. That's what the other teams will expect, Jake said. What if we try something different? Like what? Jake pointed to the building they needed to capture. Look at the architecture. It's designed like a fortress. High walls, narrow windows, only one main entrance. It's built to be defended. So we don't attack it. We make the defenders come to us. Jake's plan was complicated, but it worked. Instead of trying to storm the building, they set up fake supply lines and made it look like they were preparing for a long siege. Then they spread rumors through the training city that they had secret weapons hidden in a different building. The other teams believing they needed to stop Jake's team before they could use their secret weapons, abandon their defensive positions and attack the fake supply lines. This left the strategic building almost UNDEFENDED. While the other teams were fighting each other over fake supplies. Jake's team walked into the strategic building through a side entrance that nobody was watching. That was sneaky, Zara said. Her crystalline skin flashed different colors when she was excited. You made them defeat themselves. It's called misdirection, Jake said. Humans use it a lot. Kira was shaking her head. This is not honorable combat. Maybe not, Jake said. But it worked. Word of Jake's unconventional tactics spread through the academy. Some students thought he was cheating. Others thought he was brilliant. The instructors seemed divided as well. Commander Valthek called Jake to her office after the urban warfare exercise. Her office was decorated with weapons and battle flags from dozens of different worlds. Behind her desk was a massive window that looked out over the academy's training grounds. Sit, she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. Jake sat down and tried not to look nervous. Commander Valthek was intimidating even when she wasn't angry, and Jake couldn't tell what mood she was in. Your performance in the urban warfare exercise was noted, she said. Yes, ma'am. Some of my instructors believe you are not following the spirit of the training. They think you are finding loopholes instead of learning to fight. Jake's heart sank. Am I in trouble? Commander Valthek was quiet for a long moment. Tell me, Morrison, what do you think is the purpose of this academy? Jake thought about it. To train warriors who can handle threats that normal armies can't. Correct. And what makes a threat impossible for normal armies to handle? When it's unpredictable? When it doesn't follow the normal rules. Exactly. Commander Valthek leaned forward. For 500 years, this academy has trained the galaxy's finest warriors using traditional methods. We have produced many heroes, many legends. But we have also produced many failures when faced with truly unusual threats. Jake didn't know what to say to that. You, Morrison, do not think like a traditional warrior. You think like a human. And perhaps that is exactly what we need. I don't understand. You will. Commander Valthek stood up. You are to begin advanced training immediately. You will learn not just how to fight, but how to teach others to fight the way you do. Jake's advanced training was unlike anything. He had experience. Instead of competing against other students, he was now working with them. His job was to help them learn to think in new ways. His first student was Amy Chun, a human communication specialist who had been struggling with the combat training. Amy was smart and skilled at her job, but she couldn't seem to adapt to the academy's fighting style. I don't understand, Amy said after losing another sparring match. I know all the techniques. I've memorized every combat form, but I keep losing. That's because you're trying to fight like them, Jake said, gesturing toward the alien students. But you're not them. You're human. So fight like a human. Jake spent the next hour teaching Amy to forget everything she had learned about proper combat forms. Instead, he taught her to use her environment, to be unpredictable, to think 3 steps ahead of her opponent. Don't try to be stronger or faster, Jake told her. Be smarter. Amy's next sparring match was against a Zentran student who had beaten her easily the week before. This time, Amy didn't try to match his strength. Instead, she used the training room's equipment against him. She turned a simple sparring match into a puzzle that the Zentran couldn't solve. How did you do? That? The Zentran asked after Amy had won. I stopped trying to be you, Amy said. I started being me. Word of Jake's teaching methods spread quickly. Soon, other students were asking him for help. Even some of the alien students wanted to learn human tactics. Kira was one of the first to approach him. I want to learn your way of fighting, she said. Why? Because I am tired of losing to you in exercises, she said bluntly. My people have fought the same way for thousands of years. We are strong, we are fast, we are skilled. But you keep beating us with tricks. They're not tricks, Jake said. They're just different approaches. Teach me. Jake's training sessions with Kira were intense. She was used to relying on her natural strength and speed, but Jake taught her to use her mind as well. He showed her how to read her opponents, how to use their expectations against them, how to turn their strengths into weaknesses. This is frustrating, Kira said after a particularly difficult lesson. My people do not think this way. Maybe that's why you need to learn it, Jake said. The galaxy is changing. The old ways might not be enough anymore. Kira was quiet for a moment. You speak as if you know something the rest of us do not. Jake remembered his conversation with Luna about the new threats facing the galaxy. Maybe I do, or maybe I just think differently. Perhaps that is the same thing. As the weeks passed, Jake found himself becoming a bridge between the human students and the alien ones. He helped the humans learn to use their natural adaptability, and he helped the aliens learn to think outside their traditional patterns. Professor Helix noticed a change in her diplomatic training classes. The students are becoming more flexible in their thinking, she told Jake after one lesson. They are learning to see problems from multiple perspectives. That's good, right? Jake asked. It is essential, Professor Helix said. The galaxy is becoming more complex every day. Warriors who can only see one solution to a problem will not survive what is coming. Jake was beginning to understand that his role at the Academy was bigger than just learning to fight. He was helping to change the way the galaxy's future leaders thought about conflict and cooperation. But he also knew that his biggest tests were still ahead. The Academy's final trials were legendary for their difficulty. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Luna had been trying to tell him something important about the threats facing the galaxy. As Jake fell asleep that night, he thought about how much had changed since his arrival at the Academy. He had gone from being an outsider to being a teacher. He had learned that being different wasn't a weakness. It was a strength that could help others become stronger too. The Academy was changing him, but Jake was beginning to realize that he was changing the Academy as well. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what both he and the galaxy needed. Jake had been at the Academy for 2 months when everything changed. He was in the library studying alien military history when the emergency alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the building, and the Academy's automated voice system began making announcements. All students report to the main assembly hall immediately. This is not a drill. Jake ran through the corridors along with hundreds of other students. The assembly hall was the largest room in the Academy, big enough to hold every student and instructor at the same time. Jake found a seat near the back and waited to see what was happening. Commander Valthek walked onto the stage, but she wasn't alone. Behind her came a group of people Jake had never seen before. They wore military uniforms from different worlds, and all of them looked very serious. Students, Commander Valthek began, today you will learn the real reason this academy exists. The hall fell completely silent. Jake could feel the tension in the air as hundreds of warriors waited to hear what their commander had to say. For the past 50 years, our galaxy has faced a threat unlike anything in recorded history. We call them the Void Entities. They come from dark space beyond the edge of our galaxy, and they have already destroyed 17 star systems. Jake felt his blood turn cold. 17 star systems meant billions of people dead. The Void Entities are not like any enemy we have ever fought, Commander Valthek continued. They do not use weapons or ships as we understand them. They are pure adaptive intelligence. They learn from every battle, every strategy, every tactic we use against them. One of the military officers stepped forward. He was human, older than Jake's father, with gray hair and tired eyes. I am General Carter, he said. I have fought the Void Entities 3 times. Each time, we thought we had found a way to defeat them. Each time, we were wrong. The general activated a holographic display that showed a star map. Several systems were marked in red. The first battle was at Kepler Station. We used our most advanced ships and our best battle plans. The Void entities studied our tactics for exactly 7 minutes. Then they adapted and destroyed our entire fleet. Jake watched as the hologram showed the battle. It looked like a normal space fight at first, but then something changed. The enemy started moving differently, anticipating every move the human fleet made. The second battle was at the Centauri defense grid. We tried different tactics, hoping to confuse them. It took them 4 minutes to adapt this time. They were learning faster. The third battle was even worse. The Void entities had adapted so quickly that they seemed to know what the defenders were going to do before the defenders knew it themselves. Traditional military thinking cannot defeat this enemy, General Carter said. Every strategy we have tried, they learn and counter. Every weapon we develop, they find a way to neutralize. We need something they cannot predict or adapt to. Commander Valthek took control of the presentation again. This academy was originally created to train elite warriors using traditional methods. But 3 years ago, we changed our mission. Now we are looking for fighters who think in completely new ways. Jake understood now why he had been invited to the academy. It wasn't because he was strong or fast or naturally gifted as a fighter. It was because he thought differently. You are not here just to become warriors, Commander Valthek said. You are here to become the galaxy's last hope against an enemy that cannot be defeated by conventional means. After the assembly, Jake walked back to his dormitory in a daze. The corridors were full of students talking in hushed voices about what they had just learned. Everyone seemed shocked and scared. Jake found Luna waiting for him in the common room. She looked pale and worried. Did you know? Jake asked her. I suspected, Luna said. The training here is too strange for a normal military academy. The emphasis on adaptability and unconventional thinking. It all makes sense now. 17 star systems, Jake said. Billions of people. And it's getting worse. The Void entities are moving toward the core worlds now. Earth is in their projected path. Jake sat down heavily in one of the chairs. His home colony was small and far from Earth, but Earth was where humanity had started. If Earth fell, it would be a blow that humans might never recover from. What do they want us to do? Jake asked. Learn to fight in ways that can't be predicted, Luna said. Become so unpredictable that even an adaptive enemy can't keep up. The next day, their training changed completely. Instead of regular combat exercises, the students were now running simulations based on actual Void entity encounters. Jake quickly discovered that these simulations were unlike anything he had faced before. The simulated Void entities were represented by advanced artificial intelligence that could learn and adapt in real time. Every time Jake tried a tactic that worked, the AI would learn from it and develop a counter strategy for the next simulation. Jake's first simulation was a disaster. He tried the same kind of environmental manipulation that had worked so well in his earlier training. The AI studied his approach for a few minutes, then began anticipating his moves. Within an hour, every trick Jake tried was being countered before he could even complete it. This is impossible, Kira said after her own failed simulation. How can we fight an enemy that learns from everything we do? Maybe that's the wrong question, Jake said. Maybe we should be asking how we can fight an enemy without teaching it anything. Jake spent the next week studying the simulation data. He watched recordings of failed battles against the real Void entities, looking for patterns. What he found was disturbing. The Void entities didn't just learn from individual tactics. They learned from the way different species thought about combat. Once they encountered the Zentaran battle group, they could predict how other Zentarans would fight. Once they faced a human fleet, they understood human military thinking. They're not just adapting to our weapons, Jake told Luna. They're adapting to the way our minds work. That's terrifying. Maybe it's the key to beating them. Jake's breakthrough came during a particularly frustrating simulation. He had been trying different tactics for hours, but the AI kept adapting to everything he did. Finally, Jake got angry and stopped trying to be tactical at all. Instead of following any kind of plan, Jake started making completely random decisions. He would attack, then retreat, then attack again from a different direction for no reason. He used weapons in ways they weren't designed for. He ignored all the military principles he had learned. The AI couldn't adapt to Jake's approach because there was nothing to adapt to. There was no pattern, no logic, no strategy. It was pure chaos, for the first time since the new training had started. Jake won. Interesting, Commander Valthek said when she reviewed Jake's simulation results. You defeated the AI not by being smarter than it, but by being completely unpredictable. I got frustrated and stopped thinking, Jake admitted. Perhaps. That is exactly what we need. An approach that doesn't rely on thinking at all. Jake began teaching his chaotic fighting style to other students. It wasn't easy. Most warriors were trained to be disciplined and logical. Asking them to be random and chaotic went against everything they had learned. Amy Chun was one of the first to understand what Jake was trying to do. It's like jazz music, she said during one training session. You know the basic structure, but you improvise everything else. Exactly, Jake said. The void entities can learn from structure, but they can't learn from pure improvisation. Kira struggled with the concept more than anyone else. Her people valued honor and tradition in combat. The idea of fighting without rules or structure felt wrong to her. This is not how warriors should fight, she said after a particularly chaotic training session. Maybe warriors aren't what we need, Jake said. Maybe we need something entirely new. It took weeks of practice, but eventually even Kira began to understand. The key wasn't to abandon all training and discipline. It was to learn when to use structure and when to abandon it completely. I think I understand now, Kira said after finally winning one of the void entity simulations. We must become two different fighters in the same body. One who can plan and think and follow strategy, and one who can throw all of that away when needed. That's it exactly, Jake said. Humans are good at this because we're naturally chaotic, but other species can learn it too. As word of Jake's success with the simulation spread, military officers from across the galaxy began arriving at the academy. They watched the training sessions and studied the new fighting techniques that Jake and his classmates were developing. General Carter pulled Jake aside after one demonstration. Son, what you're doing here might be the key to saving the galaxy, but you need to understand the stakes. The void entities are only 6 months away from the core worlds. If we can't stop them soon, everything we know will be destroyed. No. Pressure, Jake said, trying to make a joke. Actually, that's exactly right, General Carter said seriously. Don't feel pressure. Pressure makes you predictable. Stay loose, stay random, stay human. That night, Jake lay in his bed staring at the ceiling. The weight of what he had learned was almost overwhelming. The entire galaxy was depending on him and his classmates to develop a way of fighting that had never been tried before. 3 weeks after learning about the void entities, Jake and his classmates faced their most dangerous mission yet. A derelict space station had been discovered drifting near the Academy system. It was infested with creatures that the military couldn't identify, and a team of Academy students was being sent to investigate. This is not a simulation, Commander Valthek told the assembled team. The creatures on that station are real, and they are dangerous. 3 military squads have already failed to secure the station. You will succeed where they have failed. Jake looked around at his teammates. There was Kira, who had become his closest rival and friend. Amy Chun, who had learned to fight like a human instead of trying to copy alien styles. Zara, the crystalline student whose skin could reflect energy attacks. Bolt, the 4-armed mechanic who could interface directly with computer systems. And 6 other students from different species, all trained in Jake's chaotic fighting methods. Why are you sending students instead of real soldiers? Asked Vera, the blue-skinned alien who had been kind to Jake on his first transport ship. "Because real soldiers think like soldiers," Commander Valthek replied. "And thinking like a soldier will get you killed on that station. You have learned to think differently. That may be your only advantage." The shuttle ride to the derelict station took 2 hours. Jake spent the time studying the mission files and talking with his teammates about strategy. But as they got closer to their destination, Jake realized that traditional strategy might not work. "Look at the failure reports," he told the others. "Every military team tried to clear the station room by room, following standard procedures. They all got trapped in the central hub." "So, what do you suggest?" Kira asked. "We don't clear it room by room. We make the creatures come to us." The derelict station was enormous, a massive research facility that had been abandoned years ago. The docking bay was dark and filled with floating debris. Emergency lights flickered occasionally, casting strange shadows on the walls. "Sensors are detecting at least 40 life forms," Bolt reported, his mechanical interfaces glowing as he scanned the station. "They seem to be concentrated in the central sections." "What kind of life forms?" Amy asked. "Unknown. They're not in any database." Jake activated his comm system. "Team Alpha, this is Jake. We're going with Plan Chaos. Remember, no patterns, no predictable moves. Keep them guessing." The team split up into 3 groups, each taking a different route toward the station's central hub. But instead of moving in standard military formation, they moved randomly. Sometimes they went fast, sometimes slow. Sometimes they backtracked for no reason. Sometimes they stopped and waited in empty rooms. Jake's group included Kira and a snake-like alien named Slink. They had been moving through the station's maintenance tunnels for about 20 minutes. When they encountered their first creature dot, it was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The creature looked like it was made of living shadow, with glowing red eyes and tentacles that seemed to shift between solid and gaseous. It moved along the walls and ceiling as easily as the floor. "Shadow beasts," Kira whispered. "My people have legends about these things." "Legends?" "They hunt by learning their prey's movement patterns. The more predictable you are, the easier you become to catch." Jake grinned. "Then let's be unpredictable." Instead of fighting the creature directly, Jake started dancing. Not any particular kind of dance, just random movement to music only he could hear. The shadow beast tried to anticipate his movements, but there was nothing to anticipate. Kira caught on quickly. She began moving in circles around the creature, changing direction every few seconds for no reason. Slink started slithering up and down the walls in patterns that made no sense. The shadow beast became confused and agitated. It kept trying to position itself to attack, but its targets wouldn't stay in one place long enough for it to strike. "Now," Jake said, and all 3 of them attacked at once from different directions. The creature couldn't defend against 3 random attacks at the same time. "That was actually fun," Kira said as they moved deeper into the station. They encountered more creatures as they got closer to the central hub. Each one seemed designed to counter specific types of behavior. There were creatures that fed on fear, so Jake's team laughed and told jokes while fighting them. There were creatures that trapped by sound, so they alternated between complete silence and random noise-making. One creature seemed to read minds, anticipating every attack before it was made. Jake solved that problem by thinking about completely unrelated things while fighting. He recited the periodic table in his head while swinging his weapon, thought about his mother's cooking while dodging attacks, and remembered funny stories from his childhood while coordinating with his teammates. "How are you doing that?" Kira asked after they defeated the mind-reading creature. "I'm not thinking about fighting while I'm fighting," Jake explained. "I'm just letting my body do what it knows how to do." When all 3 teams finally reached the central hub, they found something unexpected. The creatures weren't just random monsters. They were part of a single, connected intelligence that had been learning from every military team that entered the station. "It's like a test," Amy realized as she studied the hub's computer systems. The station was designed to study adaptive behavior. These creatures were created to learn from intruders and develop counters to their tactics. So this whole place is a giant learning machine, Jake said. Exactly, and now it's learned from us too. As if responding to Amy's words, the station suddenly came alive. Lights flickered on throughout the hub, and new creatures began emerging from hidden passages. But these creatures moved differently than the others. They moved randomly, chaotically, copying the unpredictable behavior that Jake's team had used. It learned our chaos tactics, Bolt said, his mechanical voice tight with concern. Of course it did, Jake said. So now we need to do something it can't learn. What could it possibly not be able to learn? Jake thought about it for a moment, then smiled. Human stupidity. Instead of trying to fight the new creatures tactically, Jake started doing things that made no sense. He threw his weapon away and tried to reason with a creature made of living metal. He sat down in the middle of a battle and started singing a song from his childhood. He offered to share his emergency rations with a creature that was obviously trying to eat him. His teammates thought he had lost his mind, but they trusted him enough to follow his lead. Kira started complimenting the creatures on their fighting techniques while she battled them. Amy tried to teach basic math to a creature that communicated through telepathic screens. Vera attempted to have a philosophical discussion with a beast made of pure energy. The station's intelligence couldn't adapt to their behavior because there was nothing logical to adapt to. They weren't fighting according to any strategy or training. They were just being absurdly, illogically human. I think it's working, Slink reported. The creatures are slowing down. They seem confused. Keep being stupid, Jake called out. Don't let them figure out what we're doing. The battle continued for another hour, but eventually the station's creatures stopped attacking altogether. They seemed to shut down, unable to process the completely irrational behavior of Jake's team. Mission accomplished, Jake reported to the Academy. Station secured through advanced tactical stupidity. On the shuttle ride back to the Academy, Kira sat next to Jake and shook her head. My ancestors would be horrified by the way we fought today. Are you horrified? Jake asked. Kira thought about it. No, I am proud. We won because we were willing to abandon everything we thought we knew about combat. Your ancestors probably would have adapted too if they had faced an enemy like this. Perhaps, but it would have taken them generations to change their thinking. You taught us to change in a matter of weeks. Amy leaned over from her seat across the aisle. Jake, I've been thinking about what happened in there. The station learned from every military team that entered it, but it couldn't learn from us. Why? Because military teams follow doctrine, Jake said. They have procedures and protocols and logical approaches to problems, but humans. Humans can be completely illogical when they need to be. You mean we can be stupid on purpose? Exactly. And apparently, that's a superpower. When they returned to the Academy, Commander Valthek was waiting for them with a group of military officers. The debrief took several hours as Jake and his team explained their tactics and how they had defeated creatures that had stumped professional soldiers. This changes everything, General Carter said when the debrief was finished. If we can train our forces to fight the way you fought today, we might actually have a chance against the void entities. But sir, one of the other officers protested. This approach goes against every principle of military training. How can we teach soldiers to abandon logic and discipline? By teaching them to be human, Jake said. Or at least, to think like humans when they need to. Commander Valthek stepped forward. Morrison, your methods have proven effective beyond our expectations. But now we face a new challenge. In 4 months, the void entities will reach the Kepler system. We need to be ready. What does that mean for us? Kira asked.